The rain had just stopped when Liam stood at the edge of the small town. His shoes were soaked, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. Everyone said he'd fail, that dreams like his don't belong to people like them. Still, he took the first step. His hometown was small, silent, and suspicious of change. They whispered when he passed, the boy who thought he could fly beyond their hills. But Liam didn't listen. He'd built his dream too long in the dark to let their noise stop him now. At dawn, he packed an old backpack, a notebook, a camera, and a few slices of bread. He looked once more at his mother's window. The curtain moved slightly, a quiet goodbye. He smiled, though his chest ached with fear and hope. The bus rattled down the broken road. Each bump reminded him how far away safety was. He watched the fields roll by and whispered, "Someday they'll see." His voice trembled, not from doubt, but from the weight of believing alone. City lights felt too bright, too fast. He slept in stations, sketched on cardboard, recorded sounds of strangers talking about their lives. He wanted to capture stories, real ones, the kind no one listened to in his quiet hometown. Days turned to weeks. His money ran out before his hope did. Some nights he traded sketches for food. Some nights he only had the stars. He learned hunger wasn't just for bread, but for meaning, for proof that he wasn't foolish. When he showed his art to galleries, they smiled politely. "Nice attempt," they said, "but it lacks depth." Liam thanked them, bowed, and walked away with his notebook tighter in his hand. Each rejection felt like a bruise he wore proudly. He met a street singer named Maya, her voice cracked but alive. They talked about failure like old friends. She told him, "Belief is the loneliest road, but it's the only one that leads somewhere." He didn't forget that night. Together they performed. She sang. He drew beside her. People stopped for a moment, then moved on. Still, for those moments, it felt like the world was listening, even if just with passing eyes. That small grace kept them breathing. Winter came harsh and unkind. The city didn't forgive dreamers. Maya fell sick, and Liam spent his days sketching warmth into their freezing corners. He sold his camera for medicine, whispering, "I'll buy it back when we make it." But making it felt further each day. Maya's cough worsened, and Liam's sketches turned darker. He drew her sleeping, fragile, like a flame that didn't know it was fading. Hope wavered. Even faith seemed too heavy to carry. One night he found an old mirror beside a dumpster. He saw his reflection, tired, hollow, almost unrecognizable. "Maybe they were right," he muttered. But the thought tasted bitter. He couldn't quit, not after coming this far. He carried Maya to a shelter. The volunteers took her in, promising help. As he left, her weak voice called out, "Keep walking! Liam, don't let the noise win." He nodded through tears, clutching the only promise he knew to keep. He walked, without direction, through alleys and wind. The world seemed indifferent. But inside him, something stubborn kept burning. Maybe belief didn't need witnesses. Maybe the act of walking was proof enough. Weeks later, he found a small art cafe. The owner, an older man with kind eyes, noticed his sketches. "You see people?" he said softly. "Not everyone does." He offered Liam a wall, just one, to display his drawings. When the first piece hung, Liam stood before it, trembling. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. The faces he'd drawn, strangers, dreamers, survivors, stared back at him like family. He realized they were all part of his journey. A woman stopped by, stared at one of his drawings, and began to cry. "That's my brother," she whispered. "You captured him." Liam didn't know her, but he understood. Art wasn't about being seen, it was about seeing others. Word spread slowly. The same people who once ignored him began to notice. "Who's this young artist?" they asked. Liam smiled, remembering the days when he had only hunger, rain, and belief. The noise didn't matter anymore. He bought back his camera. The city that once looked cruel now looked beautiful through his lens. Every street, every shadow told a story. He sent his photos back home, unsure if anyone would care, but hoping they might. One morning, a letter arrived. It was from his mother. Inside, just 3 words: "We believe now." Liam sat by the window, the city awake around him. Tears fell, but he smiled, because belief had finally come full circle, beginning again. Months passed, and Liam's name began to circle through the city like quiet thunder. Invitations came, small galleries first, then bigger ones. But with each light that found him, he wondered if the darkness he'd survived would ever fade. He stood before crowds now, hands trembling as cameras flashed. People praised his raw emotion, but few knew the cold nights behind those drawings. Fame, he realized, wasn't warmth. It was a mirror that reflected everything, good or broken. Maya recovered and found him again at one of his shows. Her voice, though weaker, carried the same truth. "You made it," she said. He smiled, but deep down he knew, making it was never about arriving. It was about surviving long enough to see the dawn. They walked through the city after the show, silent. The same streets that once felt endless now shimmered with memory. Maya whispered, "Promise me, Liam, you won't forget what hunger taught you." He nodded, eyes wet with gratitude and guilt. With success came offers, contracts, interviews, expectations. People wanted his story more than his art. They wanted the struggle, not the soul. He felt himself fading behind his own legend, the boy who never stopped walking. One night in a quiet hotel room, he opened his old notebook. The pages were worn, the sketches rough but alive. "Where did that boy go?" he whispered. The city lights outside flickered, answering only with silence. He decided to disappear for a while. No headlines, no cameras, just a small train ride back to the town he once escaped. As he watched the fields return, he felt both pride and fear. Would they welcome him, or still see the foolish dreamer? The town looked smaller now, the streets quieter. Some faces had changed. Others pretended not to notice him. He smiled anyway, carrying peace in his steps. He wasn't here to prove them wrong anymore, only to remember who he'd been. He visited his mother's house. She opened the door, tears already waiting. "You really did it," she said, voice shaking. Liam hugged her, whispering, "No, we did." For the first time, he felt home wasn't a place. It was belief shared. That night, he sat by the old window where he once dreamed of leaving. The stars above the hills hadn't changed. Funny, he thought. They watched me fail, they watched me rise, and still they shine without asking who I've become. In the morning, he walked to the schoolyard where he used to sketch alone. A young boy sat there drawing in the dirt. "What are you making?" Liam asked. The boy looked up shyly. "A dream," he said. Liam smiled, recognizing that fire. He handed the boy his old pencil, the same one that had survived the cold nights. "Keep this," he said. "Draw until the world listens." The boy grinned, not fully understanding, but maybe that was the point. Dreams start small, always. When Liam returned to the city, something inside him had shifted. He no longer chased approval. He created because he must, because it was who he was. The applause had become background noise to the heartbeat of his art. He opened a studio for young artists, ones like he once was, unseen, unheard, but burning inside. "You don't need to be believed in," he told them. "You just need to believe enough to walk through the noise." Maya often visited, her songs filling the walls with warmth. Together they built a place of light for those still wandering. Some stayed, some left, but each carried a piece of belief stitched quietly into their hearts. Years passed. Liam's hair silvered, his hands slower but steady. One night, a journalist asked, "What kept you going when no one believed?" He smiled softly. "Because not believing was never an option," he said. "I was walking toward myself." After the interview, he walked home under the same kind of rain that had once marked his first step. It no longer felt cold. Each drop reminded him of the journey, every rejection, every face, every night he refused to stop. He stopped by the cafe that first showed his art. The wall still stood, filled with new drawings from other dreamers. The owner nodded at him. "See," he said. "You kept walking, and they followed the footprints." That night, Liam stood on the rooftop, camera in hand. He took one final picture, not of faces, not of pain, but of the city itself, breathing under starlight. "We made it," he whispered to the wind, knowing Maya would hear. As dawn broke, Liam closed his eyes, smiling. The road had been long, but it was beautiful. When no one believed, he walked. When they finally did, he kept walking. Because belief, he learned, was never about them. It was about never stopping.